Hello and welcome back to Plant the Seed. You have Nathan and you still have Cameron, and we're here for another riveting episode of Plant the Seed. How are you, Cameron?
I'm doing actually pretty good today. How are you?
I'm great. I am super tired. I am chugging coffee, but I am alive and I am well, so that's good.
I've had 2 cups of coffee every day the past week since I've been allowed outside the house.
Oh my goodness.
Now that quarantine is finally being lifted. Yeah, I think I've taken too much advantage of being able to go to the gas station and just buy tons of coffee. I drink probably 2 or 3 a day.
Are you buying the little frappuccinos that you love?
Oh, I went even harder. I bought the triple shot espressos.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, they're good. White chocolate. Yeah, I don't need that much energy, but whatever.
That's awesome. We still got to go get coffee. Speaking of which, did we get any comments? I didn't see any.
I didn't see any.
Okay. That's fine. I'll go get coffee with you, and we'll just buy coffee for random strangers that we see and say, hey, you should listen to Plant the Seed. Here's a coffee. Oh. So a lot has happened this week. So you said yesterday you got to go and do your senior photos. How did those go?
Well, they went pretty well. I think usually you're supposed to do them in the spring or something, but Corona. Right. So, we just did them yesterday, and I'm not very photogenic, but they turned out well.
So did you guys go to a park or?
Yeah, we went to Heritage.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Did you have them professionally done, or did you have family friend?
Oh yeah, I had them professionally done by. I don't remember her first name. I think it's Jennifer, but I know her Instagram. It's Jane Mendick, and she actually did my cousin Lauren's pictures and a bunch of other kids downriver. Nice. She's been doing it for 5 years, and yeah, I'll actually, on Instagram, I'll tag her. But yeah, she's if anybody wants pictures, go to Jane Mendick Photography.
They don't sponsor us, but hey, I'm all for
definitely
supporting local people.
Yeah, she was nice. She can do we can dress up in tuxedos and get pictures taken for a cover art for the podcast.
Oh my goodness, that would be awesome. We should do that. Make it look like early 2000s.
Prom pictures, but just for the podcast.
One of us is going to have to wear a prom dress, though. I'm
fine with that. It's all right.
There we go. Some stilettos. I'm pretty short. I might actually need them. So, awesome. Well, let's jump right into this. Our quiz question. I love our quiz questions. I don't know why. The trivia questions are so much fun, but if you weren't able to hear it from the last podcast, or if you don't remember what it was, here is a trivia question from last week. It is, in Michigan, Lake Superior State University offers a unique hunting license with the following areas open to questers: the Earth, the Moon, unexplored areas only, the Milky Way, the Southeast Rim is closed on odd years, and all else. What does the license allow you to hunt? And this is a real license on their website, which is nuts. But do you want to go ahead and give the answer for this one?
So to go along with the answer for the previous question, unicorns, according to Lake Superior State University in Michigan, our home state, which I am now even more proud of being a Michigander because of this. We can legally hunt unicorns, whether they're real or not. I can get a license for it.
I love the fact that it refers to them not as hunters, but as questers. But I don't even really know where this thing came about. But yeah, legitimately, you can go on there. It's got it is a little certificate, and it's got a bunch of majestical animals or creatures on it, and you can get your license to be able to hunt down unicorns.
Yeah, this was voted into law by some Dungeons and Dragons players.
Oh, you know it.
Oh yeah, I play Dungeons and Dragons sometimes, but I don't think I would take it to the real world. I'll stick with the board game.
Maybe that's a good idea. It's like we need a Dungeons and Dragons quest for the mystical unicorn, but in order to start the quest, you have to go get a legitimate license from Lake Superior State University to start your quest. It's like tying in the Dungeons and Dragons story with real world. I'd play that quest.
Turns out the president of the college is just a really big D&D fan.
Oh my word. How awesome would that be? You have to roll dice to see if you can even get the license. What happens if you get like a critical miss? You just like slap the dean of the school and it's over.
That's how you would actually enroll in the college. Is you don't actually apply for student loans. You have to beat him. Well, there's no beating, but you play Dungeons and Dragons, and if he likes the way you play, you're in.
What an awesome college. I wonder like what kind of college degrees would that place even offer? Like Defense Against the Dark Arts, you can get yourself a bachelor's degree.
A bachelor's degree in master hunting of mythical creatures.
Exactly. You get your own wand when you join. I'd be down. That sounds like an awesome college. Like if I'm going to spend money and get myself in debt, I want to get myself in debt because I'm hunting down unicorns for extracurricular.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, how much you would sell those unicorns for? You could pay your student debt like 100 times over.
That's a good question. Like, what is the unicorn equivalent to in money? I bet it like how, is it
a couple $1 trillion?
Maybe like bags of pixie dust. Would it be in dollars? Oh, yeah. I don't know.
I don't think there's that many printed dollars in our economy.
That's true. That's true.
Because if they're real, if they are real, they're so rare that I don't think we can put a price on it.
I think you should get paid the weight of the unicorn as the weight of gold. So you get a unicorn that's 100 pounds, you get 100 pounds of gold. That sounds good to me.
That's a lot of gold.
That is a lot of gold. But I mean, there's not a lot of unicorns. So
let's say for how much a horse weighs, it's a few 100 pounds. Like they're pure muscle. Like they're pretty heavy. That in gold, you probably get like, the Federal Reserve.
Do you think Joe Exotic would get a unicorn and just breed it and yell at Carol Baskin?
He'll start trying to breed it with his tigers.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine a tiger unicorn mix? That'd be kind of dope.
But what's cooler, a unicorn or a Pegasus? Honestly, I'd rather fly than like, what's the horn doing? The unicorn, I mean, you look cool, you have a horn, but there's no practical use for it. Whereas a Pegasus, I mean, you have wings, you can actually do something with them.
That is true. Maybe that's why the license is to kill for the unicorn.
Yeah, all they can do is make good shish kebabs. That's about it.
Yep. And you don't even have to buy your own like kebab skewers. You already got the horn. You just crack that baby off and boom, you're done.
Speaking of fantasy, I was at my family's church this morning, and they played this video right before the service, and it was about like it showed Jesus in it, but he wasn't even the main character in the video. It was hilarious. It showed him like stomping on the head of the serpent when he was being tempted 40 days and 40 nights after he got baptized. And to show like God's awesome power in that there's so the lesson he was doing was spiritual warfare. And it showed Superman and Gandalf fighting off evil. I was like, what?
What a combo. Oh my goodness. I'm rooting for Gandalf though. Gandalf.
Yeah, I was just looking up and I saw Jesus like stomping the head of a snake, and then I just saw like, Gandalf the Grey. I was like, what? I don't believe he was in the Bible. I love Lord of the Rings, but surely he's not a biblical character. I think I would know.
The abridged version of Lord of the Rings. Oh goodness. That's crazy. But speaking of church, I mean, we're on a roll with these transitions right now, right? So speaking of church, Beacon, is back up and running, with some limitations, but we can actually be in the building now, which is awesome. So if you have not already signed up for a service, head over to Beacon Baptist Church, our website, and on that front page, you'll find a place where you can register for a church service. Right now, they're having them on Saturdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And then on Sundays, you have two options, one at 9 a.m. and then one at 11 a.m. But if you haven't already registered, make sure to do so. We'd love to see you there. When you do register, we ask that you actually add all of the family members that will be attending, not just you and your spouse, or not just you, rather you and then any of your children or family that will attend with you. Just because of everything that is still going on with COVID, we've got to be a little safe still. So we are limiting the services to, I think it's about 200 people right now. So like every other pew, and then sitting as much as we can 6 feet apart within the building. So make sure to register. If you have already registered for this week and you've already attended a church service, just make sure that you are registering every Monday. So every Monday you have to register for the weekend to come. Just some, safety precaution things. Obviously, we don't want people, try as much as you can not to shake hands or give people hugs within the church building. I know that's something that like a lot of us want to do, but again, just for safety purposes, please avoid doing that. And then if you want to wear a mask, it's encouraged. If you don't necessarily have one or you don't want to wear one, it's not necessarily a requirement. So you can find that registration and a list of all of the different regulations that we're trying to enforce and follow within the church building on our website at Beacon Baptist Church. Check it out. And then if you have any questions, always feel free to, contact either somebody directly from the church, or you can always call the church directly. Office hours are Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 and 4. So yeah, we're back. I'm excited.
Yeah, I went to my family's church this morning. They had we used chairs instead of pews because there's a lot smaller church there. Mm-hmm. And they had 5 chairs. Then behind it, 2 chairs, because everybody knows each other. It's so small. Mm-hmm. They had the chair set up for each family, a few feet apart. So no family's chairs were next to the other family.
That's kind of cool.
And I was like, I walked in. I was like, why is there only 30 chairs in here, and none of them are next to each other? I was very confused. I was like, this looks different.
It was kind of neat. So I was at I made it out to Beacon's service yesterday for the 5 p.m. and we had quite a few people within the building, which was pretty neat. But we were still able to space out and not be super close to everyone. It was just kind of, it was a relief. It was odd to say the least, because usually we've got quite a few people in the building and stuff, and there's usually not too many empty spaces. And with their having these regulations, half of the building was completely empty. But it was nice just to see people again.
Yeah, it was they told us we weren't even allowed to hug anybody. And my god sister, she's 12, 13. She's 13 or 14. I don't know. But I was I rarely ever see my god sister. Mm-hmm. And you're telling me I can't even hug her? So, just went outside and did it because I was not about to get yelled at. Because my god sisters, my godfather is actually the pastor of the church. So
nice.
I can't make him mad. He'll kick me out. No, he's a funny guy, comedian.
I got to see George Vierik the other day, and he's like, I can't. Can I hug you? And we were inside the church having this low key in the corner conversation about whether or not he could hug me in the church building, and I had to tell him no. I was kind of disappointed, but he gave me a sneaky hug outside afterwards. So shh, don't tell nobody. But
we were gonna I was waiting for her outside, but then I was my dad is still inside talking to the pastor, and I don't feel like waiting, so I just went inside and hugged her in the sanctuary right next to the pastor, her father. And I don't really care, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our current event here. We got more Florida news. I love Florida. I say that every podcast. But I love Florida news. You know, I feel like, you know, we talked about before we started doing current events on this podcast that we wanted stuff that was just kind of fun and kind of different. And I turn on the news in Michigan, and it always feels like it's either COVID related or protest related at this point, and there's like not really anything that's just kind of fun and wholesome most of the time. Like sometimes there are, but I don't know. But then you get the Florida news, and I feel like Florida news is just, it's something. So here we go. This is our Florida news I found. There's a TikTok video. It's a viral video right now of this animal named Sweetie. And this animal named Sweetie is a friendly alligator. If you haven't seen the video, this thing is hilarious. This alligator's like outside of this key lime pie like shop. I think it's like Florida Key Lime Company or something like that. This dude comes outside, picks up the gator, and puts it over his shoulders like a baby and carries it back into the building. And it's got like a little like key lime green or like yellowish t-shirt on. And it just gets carried back into the building like it's nothing. The funniest thing I've ever seen.
I don't think I would even go within 10 feet of an alligator or a crocodile, let alone pick one up.
Right.
And carry it like a baby.
And it didn't even fight him.
Was it full size or was it like a small gator?
So it was I think they said it was a few years old now. So basically, I read like a couple articles on it. The gator is like blind. And there was a rescue reserve that actually took this gator in to like help it because obviously it wasn't going to survive in the wild the way that it was. But then some person, I don't know if they were like part of the Florida Key Lime Company or who they were, but they bought the gator. And now it has visiting hours outside of this Florida Key Lime Company building where you can come and see Sweetie, the friendly gator. There's no way.
An alligator named Sweetie.
Yeah. But honestly, like the video is hilarious. Like I don't even know. No fear whatsoever. Just like walked out there, picked up that gator and threw it over his shoulders and carried it back into the building like a baby. And like everybody commenting on it is like, this is the most Florida video I have ever seen in my life.
So did the guy know the gator or was he a complete stranger?
No, I think he came out of the Florida Key Lime Company doors. So I don't know if it was an owner or an employee or who it was, but it did look like it was somebody that like owned the gator, like knew who the gator was. But yeah, just went out, saw the gator in the parking lot, picked it up, threw it over his shoulders and walked it inside the building. I don't know where they kept it inside the building. Like maybe if they put him in a little playpen and say, okay, now have fun. But yeah.
Just don't eat the kids.
Just don't eat the kids. He didn't flail about either. That was one thing that I thought like would end up happening when I was watching it, is that like they go to pick it up and like it would like flail or whatever. But nope, it just like limped itself in this guy's arm. Literally, like it looked like, you know, like when a father or somebody goes and picks up like their 5-year-old kid and like holds him in one arm and the kid just kind of like wraps around and gets carried into wherever. That's what this gator was doing.
I would be terrified just seeing it, let alone being the guy. If somebody paid you, would you pick up a gator?
I guess it really depends on how much they paid me. But I don't even feel like, I don't know. If I knew that like it wasn't going to bite me, then absolutely. If I knew then like it might give a little nibble, but I'd be okay, then maybe. But in all honesty, like I don't think I want to be around a gator, period. Like, let them do the gator things. Let them have their gator ways.
Yeah, I've been, you know, over quarantine. Being a senior in high school, have like zero time to do anything fun whatsoever. So I've been getting caught up on video games for the past like 4 years that have come out that I have not gotten a chance to play. And the one I'm doing right now is Red Dead Redemption 2. And my worst fear in that game is alligators, because the horses are terrified of them. So they just, the horse like knocks me off right in front of the alligator and then it just eats me and kills me. It stresses me out. I hate alligators in that game. So now I'm terrified of them in real life.
No Sweetie the Gators inside Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah, they're evil.
Yeah, I don't gators just don't look friendly.
Yeah, they just look scary.
Yeah. I wouldn't see somebody walking their gator down the street, which, side note, I'm sure happens in Florida too, and think to myself, can I pet your cute little alligator? Who knows?
Words that will never come out of my mouth.
Nope.
And then, yeah, it's scary. I'm scared of like every animal on the planet except my own dog, and even she freaks me out sometimes when she gets close to my face. So no alligators for me.
This is an alligator-free zone. Goodness, you should have probably taken your senior photos with an alligator. Like, imagine what those.
Yeah, definitely would have been nice. There were a couple geese flying over my head at the park. I was afraid they were going to poop on me, but
nastiest creatures on the planet.
I don't know if
violent.
Brad wants me to expose him like this, but when we were at his house like a week ago or so, it wasn't like it was a pigeon or something, but we were just standing in his backyard and it like a bird flew by and pooped on his elbow.
Bet.
It was so funny.
Ew.
Like, I try not to like laugh super hysterically in public and look like a fool, but I couldn't help myself. I just started busting out laughing. It was funny.
This is the quality entertainment that you guys signed up for. Birds dropping bombs and gators getting carried like babies. So put down in the comments, have you seen some weird people picking up animals they probably shouldn't? I want to know, because gators is top of my list. I am picking those up. Nope. All right, well, let's go ahead. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to jump into our segment 2, where we are going to talk about David and Goliath. So a familiar story to a lot of people, but we want to take it from a little bit of a different perspective. So let's take a break and go do that. Do. Yeah. Bye. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Plant the Seed. Big shout out again to Riley Berry. Thank you for putting together our lesson for this week. And then I believe Riley is doing all of summer, basically as an intern, so you'll probably see him even more. Hopefully, we'll all be back in the building so that we can actually hang out with him and do some fun stuff. So we'll see. I think we have camp coming up here pretty soon for like the teens or something. I don't know. Have you heard about that, Cam?
Yeah, I've heard about the Beyond the Borders camp. Sadly, I will not be able to go, but I hear it will be a lot of fun.
That sucks. Well, I'll have fun for you.
Oh yeah. I hear there's also paintball, which makes me definitely upset I can't go, because I love paintball and I like reffing for paintball almost as much as I like playing. It's fun.
Oh, it's just gonna be great. They've got paintball. I think they have like CJ Barrymore on there or something. There's canoeing. Then we're doing like a bunch of service projects and stuff. It's going to be great. If you're listening to this and you haven't signed up yet and you're interested in signing up, the camp dates are July 7th through the 11th. You can find the full schedule on the Beacon website. And if you have a teenager who's looking to try to get out of the house, or if you as a parent are looking to try to get rid of your teenager so that you can have some time alone for a while, this is a great opportunity for you. So check out the church website. You can fill out the registration and pay there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be, I'm signed up, of course, to be like leader, helper, but I'm going to be flat out honest. Like, I'm going to be having just as much fun with everybody. Like, I can't wait. It's going to be great. But to go ahead and give a breakdown real quick about what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about David and Goliath, but we're going to take it from a little bit of a different perspective rather than just kind of going through the story itself. But if you are interested in reading the story of David and Goliath and you're not familiar with it, you can find that story in 1 Samuel chapter 17. It's kind of long, but you can pretty much get through the gist of it between like verses 1 through probably like 13 or something like that. It's like 58 verses altogether. It's worth reading, trust me. It's pretty wild, pretty crazy. But to give you just a really quick summary of the story of David and Goliath, when faced with an intimidating giant, the Israelites are crippled by fear. However, one shepherd boy, David, sees the giant Goliath with a clear mindset and a faith in God. As a result, David overcomes the giant Goliath, slaying the beast with a stone and giving courage back to the Israelites. So a couple things I thought we could kind of maybe talk about within this lesson is this idea of like facing our giants in our day-to-day life. And David, I think, does that in the story in like 3 different ways. I'm sure you could probably pull apart a whole lot more, but there's at least 3 I thought we could focus on. And that is the fact that he saw his giant, like he physically saw what the giant is that he's facing. The second thing would be like he found the weakness in Goliath, like he found the weakness within the giant that he was facing. And the third thing being that he actually made a plan to then defeat Goliath or defeat the giant in his life. So like Cameron, I feel like in life, like all of us probably individually face like our own versions of those giants in our lives. But I guess like facing those giants a lot of times, at least I know for myself, isn't easy. So how do we face those giants, or more importantly, what can we do to overcome them? And I think when having that thought or trying to figure out how to face or overcome giants in our lives, I think we can follow David as an example and kind of look at like this as steps in some ways. So I think the first step is figuring out what the giant is. And in this case, David has a visual representation of like it's Goliath. He's huge. He can physically see him. But maybe for us, it's not quite as obvious. So what are some ways that you use to try to find like your giants in your life that you're facing?
Yeah, so I guess if you mean it in this way, like a giant isn't just like an obstacle in my way of being a good Christian. I think, my main obstacle in life is like dealing with like depression and anxiety and all that. Mm-hmm. And I guess the way I find it and things that make me notice that it, like an episode is coming, like of a manic state or a depressed state, is like I'll find myself just acting differently and reacting to everything differently. And then I'll know something is about to happen and I'm going to have to bear through it and just pray to God that I, can withstand the episodes. But yeah, that's like, I guess how I find my giant. And then like, I see another question would be like a trigger, which I sort of just answered, but I'll ask you, are there like certain things that you notice or triggers that would be emotional or part of your attitude or something physical that you see that just trigger your brain and say, ooh, this is a giant. I'm going to have to overcome this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually think that you put it really well. Some of those giants that I either face or have faced in life are kind of like the same thing, depression, anxiety. I struggled with a few different things. I still struggle with a few different things from time to time. But I like what you said in regards to just kind of having you just physically feel different, I think, when you're facing a giant. Like you feel crippled in a lot of ways. And sometimes it's easier to tell, at least for myself, when I'm in that spot. And other times I just kind of get consumed by being crippled by whatever the giant is that I'm facing in life. But specifically, I guess like triggers for myself, like usually just like how I feel. I usually feel like very exhausted if I'm being crippled by like some giant in my life, or I just feel like my attitude definitely starts to change. Like the way I communicate with people is usually a big trigger or indication that like I am not only being faced with a giant in my life, but I'm like losing against that giant. Is like I lose a lot of my patience a lot easier. I'm less, I think, compassionate towards people when I'm facing a giant that I need to overcome. So those are some ways that I kind of, at least for myself, recognize that At the very least, like there's a giant in my life, and I use those triggers to try to help me figure out, okay, what is the giant then? Like, is it depression this time, or anxiety, or sometimes it's just guilt, like knowing I did something wrong and I need to take that to God and I need to repent and make a change. But I think whatever the giant is that you're facing, yeah, you have to. I think your step one is actually recognizing that there's a giant in the way, or like Cameron, to like you put it, a barrier that's standing in the way, and figuring out or identifying what that barrier is. And again, in David's case, that's Goliath. It's something that he can see. It's something that he can be like, oh yeah, he's right there. Sometimes we have to do a little bit more prayer and searching for that, but I think that's important to do.
Yeah, and when you say that, like searching for it, before I knew what was, I guess I would say, wrong with me, a few years ago, I would start to feel sick all the time and not talk to anybody, especially like junior year of high school. I would never talk to anybody. I would feel like I had a headache all the time and felt sick to my stomach all the time, and I would get super annoyed with everybody super easily. And like you said about being less compassionate, like I didn't care about anybody or anything. And that's when I realized that I was entering another like state of depression. And so my doctor, recently put me on like this antidepressant called Zoloft. Mm-hmm. And after being on it for a couple months now, I realized like the giant I would be facing is like when I could tell when an obstacle is coming, because I would like legitimately feel physically ill or like have a headache, or I would just look at another person and just get angry because I would have to deal with other people, and I just wanted to be alone. And that being alone is not exactly the best thing to do in that situation. But yeah, I just, like, as you said about, I can like physically feel like different. Like I wouldn't necessarily be like super in pain, but I didn't feel good.
Sure. I think the one thing about giants as well, and I think you made a good point of it too, when you face your giants for the first time, I think for everybody it can be kind of a really scary experience, or something that's very confusing. Like, it's not easy to face, and it's not necessarily easy to find sometimes. But one thing I think is overlooked in the story of David and Goliath is the extension of that. It's not just David and Goliath, it's the Israelites, David, Goliath, and Philistines. And if you look at it in the sense of like, if you take a look at the Israelites are, facing the giant, and together as an army, as a group of people, are all crippled by the giant that is in all of their lives. And I think the really important thing that we can take away from that is knowing that if you are facing a giant in your life, it sometimes isn't just necessarily you that's facing it, although that we can feel like that sometimes. There's probably a lot of other people out there in the world who are facing a very similar giant, who are experiencing the exact same type of fear and anxiety, or whatever the case is. But in the story of David and Goliath, David's kind of like the first person to really face that Goliath, that giant, in a way that's like a little different than just cowering or being overthrown or overtaken by that fear. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit more. But I think, yeah, if you're somebody listening to this who's going through the anxieties, going through the depression, going through some kind of giant in your life, is to also remember that, like, even in the story of David and Goliath, it wasn't just one Israelite that was fearful. It was a whole group of Israelites. So don't necessarily feel like you have to be crippled by it, or that you're the only one who's going through it. There's probably a lot of people right there with you. But I guess kind of like an extension off of this kind of idea is kind of moving into the second thing that I think David does really well in this story on overcoming that crippling feeling, and where he stands out separate from the Israelites who are all crippled together, is like, once you see or your giant, I think that we need to take that a step further, and we need to see it for what it truly is. Rather than letting it cripple us, we need to look at that giant. We need to figure out where the weaknesses are in that giant, because I feel like everything that seeks to put you down has a weakness. And this, for the Israelites, they couldn't see past the size of Goliath. However, David saw the giant for what it truly was. If you read the story of David and Goliath, David mentions this thing that's very interesting. He basically stands before Goliath and says, who is this man, this uncircumcised man who stands before me? And that definition of the fact that he's uncircumcised, I think David is using not as a way of he's actually seeing anything of Goliath, but rather to use it as a representation that this is a man who does not follow the covenant that we have with God. He does not have God on his side, and therefore that is one of his biggest weaknesses is he doesn't have God. So when we face our giants, I feel like we have to do that too. So I guess when you face your giants, Cameron, do you find yourself being crippled by it? And I guess a secondary to that question would be what things do you try to do to find the weak points within those giants you face?
Yeah, definitely. As we've been talking about depression and anxiety, it definitely makes me feel crippled or numb or paralyzed, stuff like that. It's I find myself not being able to think straight, not being able to feel the right way, and not being able to function properly, and just being lazy and tired all the time. And I try to look for the weak points, as in looking for something positive to help me overcome what I'm going through, or talk to people about it. And so I guess the weak points for the stuff I go through with depression, it's just you can get put down by keeping everything to yourself. So I look for the positive stuff and talk to people good friends or parents or my doctor or whatever that will, I guess, poke holes in the in my depression giant. Because I guess my weak points are just once I start to look for positive things, it kind of crumbles it all down and I get over it. But it does take a while.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like what you said about finding other people too, finding people to talk to. I think that that's something that is a great defense tool for everybody. I feel like your top of the line, number one place that you should go is obviously going to Christ, going to God and praying and, giving that up to God. But I feel like a very close second to that, or a second step, would be to go and, like you said, Cameron, get that encouragement from other people around you. Whether that's you seek, medical attention and you talk to a doctor, or you talk to, some Christian friends of yours that you're close to, or you talk to your parents or whoever the case is, or whatever the case is. Getting that support from people, I think, is so important. And to everybody who might not necessarily be in the place where you're facing a giant right now, I think it's consequently just as important for us who have already faced our current giants in life, and we've, overcome some of those, and God's got us on track again, and we're refocused and realigned. I feel like we have a responsibility then, if we see somebody else who's facing a giant, to go and be an encouragement to those people so that we can help them overcome that giant too. It's that idea of God, I think, doesn't just bless us to bless us. He blesses us so that we can take those blessings and also consequently bless others. So, but yeah, and I mean, for myself, I've been crippled by, depression before. Been crippled by a lot of giants at different times. But things that I try to do to find those weak points in those giants, once I've identified them. So really ask myself, does that giant have any control over me? It might feel like it does, and it might seem like it does, but a lot of times you can kind of find you give more power to those giants than what they really have. At least that's what I find for myself. So I would say when you're looking for the weak points, see if you are giving more power to the giant than what that giant actually has of its own self. And if you are, then that's the weak point right there. And then fix for that usually is just fixing our own mindsets and kind of getting ourselves and our lives on track and focused on God, to help fix those. Easier said than done. Definitely takes time, but you baby steps. So, but Cameron, when you found your giant and then found the weakness or the reality of the giants that you faced, I feel like I guess we kind of have to decide of how to attack or defend against those giants. So, for example, David's first step in his plan to attack was to acknowledge that his giant was not defended by God. And I feel like his next step was to realistically look at like what he had to actually attack the giant head on. So like attack Goliath. In David's case, he's a shepherd, so like stones and a sling are his go-to weapons, and that's what he kind of goes for. But for yourself, like in what ways do you prepare to attack your giants, and have you ever made some really dumb attacks that just led to like the giant getting even more over you?
Oh yeah. So I'd say like I've done some pretty dumb stuff trying to like make myself feel better about stuff, like taking like stuff like drugs or medication, or like stopping myself from thinking, because like when you're depressed and you're by yourself thinking, it just like feels it. So I would be like, I'm just going to stop myself from thinking, and then it won't be a problem. But that often can be dangerous because, kind of need to think to function, even if it's bad. Sure. And so I would just like numb myself and just try to chill out, have fun. And I would also just like ignore the problem. That was like my way of, well, I can't think about it if I ignore it, but ignoring it just makes it worse. And eventually, after a few years, went and saw somebody, got some help. So, I mean, definitely ignoring the problem is my biggest like mistake that I make it pretty often.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like I've been in that same place, being in certain types of relationships throughout my life was like a way that I tried to distract myself from, how that giant was attacking me, and those relationships were not necessarily the greatest. Like I got myself screwed up in a lot of different things growing up because of it. And like you had said, trying to ignore it was a big thing that I had tried to do. And for a while, I feel like you might be able to hold on to that. Like you might be able to push it to the side and push through it. But you try to do that for enough years or whatever the case is, you're going to break at the seams. And to Cameron's point, if you're going through that and that you're trying to, suppress or hide some of that, I think like the first thing is to realize that giant only gets as much power that we allow to feed into it a lot of times. And the second thing is there's no shame in reaching out for help, raising your hand and getting somebody's assistance to overcome those giants. Because a lot of times, like the giants we face, we're going to require some kind of assistance and help. There's nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, I would definitely say I've done some really dumb stuff to try to, what in my own mind I thought was defending against the giant, and was rather just feeding it more problems. Like I was building more issues for myself than finding a solution to it. So
yeah, I would like come up with like a really dumb solution. Like this is going to make me feel better. And then I realize this is only making it worse, but now I'm addicted to it. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And then, now I have two problems. And then I try to fix that with something else. And now I have three problems, and it just keeps getting worse. But, talking to people definitely helps.
Yeah, and definitely takes time. That's one thing I feel like is the hardest thing about beating any kind of giant or temptation or like addiction or something like that is the amount of time that it's going to take and effort that it's going to take to get out of that. And I feel like when David was faced with his giant, the very first thing again that he does is recognize that he is facing a giant, Then he recognizes the weaknesses of that giant, and for himself, he went and suck out, what he needed to do to then defeat that giant. And through all of those steps, the big thing that he does is his eyes are always focused on God. His eyes are always focused on going to God for that assistance and help. And I feel like when in our lives, if you're facing a giant, or when I'm facing a giant, or Cameron, I think consequently like you too, we have to like focus on God first, make that our priority, and then from that point stem off and focus on where can I go to maybe talk to somebody and keep on pushing through it. And if there's anything I can say, if you are somebody who is trying and you're still fighting, keep fighting. I know that it's not necessarily fun and it's not necessarily easy all the time, but God will help you get through that. It might take time, but you can overcome those giants too. You're not like permanently stuck with dealing with that kind of thing. And we serve a God who's willing to love and care for us and forgive us if we're willing to repent of those. So if you have gotten super far, like Cameron mentioned and what I've gone through, we've gone through times where one hole, trying to dig out of that hole, head into another hole. You're not like too deep or too far gone where you can't get yourself back on track or for God to use. But Cameron, do you have anything else to kind of add to that before we go into our segment 3 here?
No, but I definitely am excited for this segment, the best segment.
It's a trivia question.
Yes, trivia.
Oh
yeah, this one's good.
I like this one. I promise it's not unicorns again.
Yeah, it's not unicorns again like the last 2 times. We've just been really into unicorns lately, I guess.
You want to go ahead and give us our trivia question for this week?
Okay, I'm very, very surprised. I'm keeping my composure because I'm about to start laughing. So in Cyprus, this longest wedding veil ever is many lengths of a football field. I've never even heard of a wedding veil being the length of one football field. I've seen them like 10 feet. Not 100 yards. So the question is, roughly how many football fields? The fact that it is more than one is crazy to me, but this number is even crazier. And then if you want to go a step further, how many feet is this in football fields? Which is an even larger number.
I don't even know how they found the fabric. I have no idea.
Where do you get this fabric? Did you just have the spider spit it out and just get that silk?
I don't know. When I read the article for it, this the section on who holds the record, this lady basically said that ever since she was a kid, that was her goal, was she wanted to have the longest veil. She wanted the longest veil. And yeah, this veil, there's photos online and it literally goes one direction, meets a place where it can't go any longer, and then turns around and goes all the way back. And it does this numerous times on these football field lengths worth of area.
Where do you even find a piece of land that you can drag that across without it getting run over?
How do you even transport it? You can't.
You have to fold it about 1 billion times.
Oh my goodness, you had to get a box truck. I got to imagine that thing had snags and everything. How do you even have enough people to carry this stupid thing through your wedding?
It probably weighs more than me.
Probably. There was a lot. But yeah, football fields worth. So roughly how many football fields long was her veil? And there is the feet too. So if you want to try to guess how many feet, it's on there. But talk about giants. That right there was a giant in her wedding. That's all I have to say. Oh my goodness. Oh, all right. Well, Cameron, do you have anything else before we close this out?
I am very happy, even though there are restrictions, to be back at church. So whether you want to stay online or come to the building, or if you go to a different church than us, go to that building, we are very excited to finally start getting to somewhat normal. It's been stressful.
It has been. Absolutely. So, yep, as final reminders, everybody, if you haven't already registered for this week's service, go ahead and make sure that you do that. And then make sure to remember to do that once a week until we get to a normal, time where we don't necessarily have to register for church. We will have to do that on a weekly basis. And number 2, again, if you have a teenager who is not signed up for camp yet, but who would like to go and sign up for a camp, make sure to check out our church's website and fill those bad boys out, get that registration done. And we look forward to seeing you all then. Without any further ado, I think that's all we got. So, thank you for joining us again for this week of Plant This Seed. And remember to be different, do different.